Pursuant to Section 84-1411 of the Nebraska statutes, notice of this meeting was given on May 3rd, 2018. The meeting will convene at 6:30, and visitors may obtain a request to be heard form from staff for any presentation they may have for the meeting. In accordance with policy, the request to be heard forms must be submitted to the secretary within the first 5 minutes of the board meeting in order to be heard at this meeting. Agenda items are subject to reordering at the discretion of the board president. Please attend the entire meeting to hear any discussion.
I think some.
Pursuant to Section 841411 of the Nebraska statutes, the next regular meeting of the Board of Education of Douglas County School District 0001 and the Board of Educational Service Unit Number 19 will be held on Monday, May 24, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. in the Board Meeting Room of the Teacher Administrative Center, 3215 Cummings Street. The agenda will be kept current and available for public inspection in the Office of the Secretary of the Board of Education at the Administrative Building during regular working hours. Pursuant to Section 8414 of the Nebraska statutes, the public is hereby informed that a current copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is posted in the Board Meeting Room on the north wall. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. And Vice President Merica will lead us in the OPS vision and mission statement.
All right, first is our vision, every student, every day prepared for success, and our mission. Omaha Public Schools prepares all students to excel in college, career, and life.
Thank you. Mr. Ray, roll call, please.
Cassidy,
Here.
Godding,
Present.
Hallman,
Here.
America,
Present.
Perlman,
Here.
Ryan,
Present.
Scanlon, Smith,
Here.
Snow.
Here.
8 present.
Moving on to School Spotlight with Mrs. Monique Farmer.
Good evening, President Snow, members of the board, and Superintendent Evans. I am pleased to present this evening's OPS Proud Spotlight. Congratulations to 3 OPS high school seniors who were selected as National Merit finalists for the 2018 National Merit Scholarship Program. We'd like to recognize Eric Polarecki and Simon Schobeck, both from Central High School, and Cameron Pullen from North High Magnet School. These academically talented students were chosen based on their PSAT scores, the National Merit Scholarship qualifying tests, and high academic performance in classroom coursework. Each scholar will receive a $2,500 scholarship award. This fall, Eric will attend the University of Arizona at Tucson. Simon will attend the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and Cameron will attend the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Each student received various scholarships, which will allow them to attend their universities on a full ride. And at this time, I'd like to invite Principals Dr. Bennett and Mr. Haynes to the podium with their students to give you some brief remarks.
All right, Brother Man. Welcome. We are thrilled to be here this evening, and thank you for taking the time to honor our National Merit finalists. They do a fantastic job in the classroom. We're so honored by what they do. Their families have done a wonderful job, clearly making them the kind of students that OPS can be very, very proud of. So we thank you again for having them here this evening, and appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. Good evening. Mr. Snow and Mr. Evans, Superintendent, and other members of the Board of Education. It is indeed a pleasure here to recognize our student who's done a great job for 4 years at Omaha North High School. We're very, very proud of her and the legacy that she has left for other students to attend the greatest high school east of the Rockies and west of the Mississippi.
Thank you guys so much. Would any of you scholars like to speak? Cameron?
You want your diploma?
Thank you for having me here. I appreciate the support you show for all of your OPS schools, and I'm proud to represent you guys. I was kind of just thrown up here by Mr. Haynes, as you can see, so that's kind of all I got right now, so thank you.
Thank you, members of the board. I appreciate the recognition that you give to students who achieve high academic standards and do well in academics, and I assume other programs here in the OPS. I've been, and I assume most of the other students here have been students, lifelong students at OPS, and I think the system here works very well. And I think one of the best things that came out of my education was an early inspiration and love of academics. Personally, I'm going to Lincoln in the fall, and I will be studying computer sciences and mathematics. And I was inspired at a young age in those topics by teachers at the elementary school I went to, Dundee Elementary, and through the other schools, Lewis and Clark Middle School and Central High. And I enjoyed attending all the classes and the support of all the teachers and all the administrators along the way who helped me in our, I guess it's all of our successes in a way, because I, as a student, also represent all the other students of Omaha in our achievement. Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the board for having me here tonight. It's a great honor. Although I've spent a short amount of time in the Omaha public school system, this short amount of time, the teachers I've met, the counselors I had were very influential in allowing me to continue to follow my dreams and pursue my career goals. And I think it's a lot of things that I'll remember my entire life, and a lot of people I've met that will continue to be influential in my path. So thank you.
I told them you might have some hard-hitting questions like, gee, how did you get to be so smart? So they're prepared for those. Okay.
They might want to ask you guys some questions.
I don't know if it's a hard-hitting question, but congratulations to all of you. I think
They might want to ask you all some questions.
it's not an easy task. I think there are very few students who make it into the final National Merit Scholarship round. So congratulations to you on that. I have a couple questions for you. What advice would you give to juniors, next year's juniors, who will be taking the test in the fall, as far as preparation or getting ready for the test? Or did all of you just go in and take it? And
I would say that the test that we take as freshmen and sophomores mandatorily through the school system may not be viewed as important as, say, the SAT or the ACT, but I think taking those tests as importantly and continuing to focus on your schoolwork throughout and realizing that any little opportunity can be influential in your future, realizing that that test could still open up a lot of new opportunities for me is kind of what kept me focused and helped me to perform the best that I could.
I'd also tell underclassmen and juniors that it's okay if you don't test well. I mean, that is a perk of my intellect that just naturally comes by, but I know that it's not natural for everyone, and you can still go to college and get great opportunities through your passions and your passions. And it's not only academia that can get you there, it's volunteer work and athletics and just a drive. And even if naturally the intellect and the coursework doesn't come as naturally, there are other areas, other paths you can take, that it's okay that if you don't take the same path that I do. So yeah.
I do remember that there was one teacher who made a very specific point that despite having taken the test the previous year, as some students can take the test a year early, that the previous test doesn't count for the score. And they stressed very specifically that the year that you take it as a junior is what counts, and that give your best effort on this test, because what is the worst outcome? The worst outcome is you spent an hour on taking a test and nothing came of it. But the best outcome is that someone else pays for your full college, and that's quite a good benefit for an hour of your time.
I would agree. I think that's great. And you all are going to schools that, I think somebody's going to Arizona, right? And that's a school that recognizes National Merit Scholars. I've known other students who have been able to get National Merit from Nebraska to Arizona. So you're all getting the opportunity to have your college education paid for. I think the PSAT is not a required test, correct? So I guess one of the things I would encourage for everybody watching is do what these young people did and sign up for it your sophomore year and then sign up for it your junior year, because like you just said, you never know what might come of it, and even if nothing comes of it, you've gained the experience of taking a test. So congratulations to all of you.
Okay, just like really quick, just to raise hands. Which one's Eric? Okay, and Simon, and then, how do you say it? Cameron? Okay. So what all are you guys going to study? I know one had said that they're going to study computer science and mathematics. What are the other two of you going to study?
I'm still trying to decide between either nursing or neuroscience.
Okay.
I am also planning on studying computer science and mathematics. So.
Okay. And then, did you guys each choose your high school based off of certain programs that were offered at those individual high schools?
I went through the International Baccalaureate program, middle years program, through Lewis and Clark, and then I followed that through with a diploma program into Central High School. So that's the route I took, and we're nearing the end of that program, and I'm hoping for the diploma in the fall.
No, I wouldn't say that there was any particular special program that influenced my high school choice.
Is Central your home attendance area school?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, as you all know, North is a STEM magnet, so that is for sure what drove me there.
Okay. And you guys, do you feel that as high achievers that you guys were challenged throughout all of your classes and everything?
Yes.
Good answer, good answer.
Your principals are very happy with you.
I will say that since I went through the IB program, it's considerably different from many of the paths other students take, but it's on the similar level to the AP program we have at Central, and I believe it's as rigorous a program as all the other schools offer. I do enjoy the difficult classes. They're quite fun. There were also additional classes that I had to take as an IB student, which were slightly different. A required course that's not one that I believe is offered at any other school is the Theory of Knowledge class, and that's an epistemology and philosophy course. And that's quite a bit different from most other classes taken by high schoolers. So it was quite an interesting class. Instead of just being a normal English or mathematics course, it focused more on why and how as questions, and specifically looking at some other subject and then understanding how you come to know different things in that subject. And it's a far more rigorous course in some aspects because it's not purely based on your understanding of one subject. If you're just good at math, then you're good at math. If you're good at writing, then you're good at writing. If you're an athlete, you're probably good at being athletic. But the Theory of Knowledge course was quite a bit different because the thing you had to be good at was thinking critically and asking questions to problems that may or may not have answers. It was quite a challenging course, but I loved it. It was a very entertaining course. And there were some long nights writing papers, which were fairly fun in a very difficult way to get through.
Well, thank you very much. I think that, I mean, as Board of Education, we just want to make sure that we're providing challenging opportunities for all our students across the spectrum of ability, and you guys are, you know, congratulations. Continue to do great things.
Well, Simon, Eric, and Cameron, thank you guys so much. You are truly what stands for OPS, and we're so proud of you. So if everybody can give them another round of applause. And if you could graciously walk around the table, and we'd love to shake your hands on the inner circle. The inner half circle.
You're gonna take it in here?
We're going to take it right now.
Okay, then. So you're gonna mention it here? What's the custody you represent up there?
I'm going to take a picture really quick. You want to stand right here?
No, you don't have to be in attention.
Yeah, let's have the students up front. Let's make sure I can see it. Okay, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. That's perfect.
Thank you.
While our superintendent is hurrying to the table, I just want to remind everybody that on May 15th is the primary. Go out and vote, please. Exercise your franchise. Franchise is a vote. Sorry, political science. Franchise, not French fry. Okay, we'll move on to board member. Oh. Mr. Evans, you're up. He's retiring in a month, so forgive him, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking of retirement, I had an opportunity to be with 4 of our board members, and there was a celebration in Dr. Cheryl Logan's honor on Friday that was a good turnout. I know we've got several planned for her throughout the next month and a half, and I continue to be impressed and want to thank the board again for a great decision. I think Dr. Cheryl Logan is just fantastic. She spoke, as you can imagine, just very, very well on Friday night, and every group that she speaks to, she just does a great job. So I know she's anxious to move forward with the challenges here, and I think the board, again, has made a great decision. Other activities just wanted you to be aware of. I've had an opportunity to speak with KIOS regarding the bond issue and several other updates. I've also got a meeting with KFAB regarding the bond details with Mr. Snow. President Snow and I will be speaking to them tomorrow. I had a meeting with the Chamber Executive Board this morning, and there are just multiple community groups that continue to be interested in the details of the bond issue and what it is and what it isn't, and wanting to know the details of the work. So it's great that the interest is there. I think that means a lot that we do have that level of interest. On a really good news piece, I wanted to point out I had a letter and a call from Mr. Ronda. Bryan High School has been recognized as a model urban agricultural academy. And so they're going to be recognized on November 5th through 7th at the 2018 NCAAC National Conference in Houston, Texas, this next fall. So congratulations to all the Bears at Bryan High and Principal Aranda for having a model program that's now being recognized nationally. I think that's just an awesome thing to see. I also wanted to congratulate all the Columbian students and parents. We did a groundbreaking activity today. Dr. Holman was there, and we had an opportunity to celebrate what's going to be a beautiful, beautiful new school at Columbian this morning. So a fun way to start our morning. And finally, just as a note to the community and a note to all the members of the Budget Advisory Committee, we had our last meeting last week on Thursday night. The recommendations now go to the school board, and the school board has a workshop planned for May 15th. And again, thank all those members who gave up a lot of time trying to analyze and come up with the least, and I always say this, the least difficult reductions, because every reduction is difficult, and this last couple of weeks has been filled with a lot of difficult conversations with staff as we continue to look for $26 million. And of course, the largest part of that, 18.9, is for the unfunded pension liability. And just as a note to that unfunded liability, we had a 10% gain in the investment earnings this last year. We had a report last week from the actuarial person, Pat Beckham, and the 10% gain is the best we've had. Actually, I think it may be in 10 years. And so we had a really great year, but unfortunately, it's still not enough to stop the additional ARC payments. And so those will still continue on. I've had some people ask whether that would stop. It doesn't, but if that great growth continues, then I think we're going to see that go down, but it's going to take a few years of it. So just kind of an update on that in case you've got some questions. So thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Board, for allowing me the opportunity to share a few updates.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Ms. Merica.
I just had a couple of things. First off, wanted to thank our Omaha Education Association for inviting us to attend Laurel's Night again this year. It was held last night, honoring our teachers that have been teaching in the district for 25 years, our teachers who are retiring, as well as a Rookie of the Year, so first-year teacher, and some community organizations that benefit our students. I think those organizations this year were Inclusive Communities, the Bellevue Leader, and Omaha Public Library. So it was just a great event to actually saw my elementary school librarian, who I have not seen since elementary school, so that was very fun. And then wanted to just personally say congratulations to all of our students that will be graduating in a couple of weeks, because this is our last board meeting before graduation start on May 20th.
Thank you. Dr. Holman.
Good evening, everyone. So I had a very fun-filled morning today. I started off my morning at JP Lord. The students got to move into their brand new building today, and it was such an exciting morning. Just seeing them all getting dropped off, and one of their best features of their school, and I know they're all very excited about it, is that the new building has rafters now, so that when the buses pull up, they're protected from the rain and the elements. And it was just an exciting morning just to see the smiles on the teachers' faces and just to get the kids really excited about all the sensory things that they have in their building. So that was very fun. And then right after that, I attended, as Mr. Evans already pointed out, the groundbreaking ceremony at Columbian, which was also another exciting time. And also I wanted to congratulate all of our seniors as well that will be graduating. Looking forward to the upcoming graduations in the next couple of weeks, and thank you.
Mrs. Cassidy.
Thank you, President Snow. Got to grab my notes so I don't get this incorrect. I want to take a moment to give some kudos and congratulate one of our teachers, Myra Guzman. She is a fourth grade teacher at Gomez Elementary. She was chosen as April's Dual Language Teacher of the Month by the duallanguageschools.org. So I actually went, Mr. Evans sent out the attachment that showed the article, and it was a pretty lengthy article, but she's pretty remarkable. She was a dual language student herself, and she also has her daughter in the dual language program. So I thought that was pretty amazing. She's been everything from a paraprofessional started as a paraprofessional. She's been a bilingual liaison at the high school level. She tutored ELL students. She's worked with migrant and refugee students, and this is her second year teaching at Gomez Heritage. So I just wanted to give some quick kudos to her for that great award and great honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
I just wanted to make mention that I got the opportunity to attend the Urban League of Nebraska Scholarship Banquet, and they awarded $1,000 scholarships to over 37 students, and so it's going to be a great opportunity for kids to continue their education, and it's in a testament to the good work that's being done in our building. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Mr. Perlman?
Yeah, I just wanted to take a moment to thank all the teachers in our district. This week is National Teacher Appreciation Week. Tomorrow is National Teacher Appreciation Day. So on behalf of the board, I want to thank all of the teachers in our district for everything that they do every day. So that's all.
Thank you. Okay, well, if you look at the front of my mic is a T-shirt from Unified Nebraska. It's the Special Olympics for Nebraska, and I had an opportunity on May 3rd to attend a Mustache for Kids event where I shaved my beard and everything, and over the next month I will be growing a mustache for our students in OPS and throughout the metro for the Special Olympics of Nebraska. So when you guys see me within a week, you will see a very big, large mustache. At your table, I did give you guys some facts about the Special Olympics, and if you would like to donate to this amazing cause for our students, you may go online to, if I'm correct, it's s1.org. So with that, thank you guys so much. Moving on, there is no public comment, if I'm correct, Mr. Ray. So moving on to the consent agenda, I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda that is before us.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Perlman, second by Mr. Smith. Any abstentions? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Ray.
Cassidy,
Aye.
Gadding,
Aye.
Holman,
Aye.
America,
Aye.
Perlman,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Scanlon,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
9-9.
Motion carries. Moving on to Moving on to J1A, Middle School Reading Intervention Textbook Adoption. And could we just bring both of them up, or do you want to do individual?
It's up to you. This was a request to pull off consent, so if you want to start with questions, or they can do a quick review of what they've talked about.
Sounds good. You do one.
Thank you, President Snow, Vice President Merica, Mr. Evans, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I appreciate this opportunity to return and present the middle school reading intervention textbook adoption and the high school reading intervention materials upgrade as action items this evening. On April 16th, Curriculum and Instruction Support presented information to the board regarding the middle school reading intervention textbook adoption. Currently, middle school teachers are using random supplemental materials, and their primary resource does not provide a full instructional framework. The proposed adopted resource provides a full instructional framework that includes resources for teacher-led small group instruction, independent reading, and differentiated online support. Through this purchase, teachers and students will be provided tiered supplemental courses to boost the literacy achievement of students who are not achieving grade level expectations in reading, a consistent district-adopted textbook to support reading intervention for middle school students, curricular materials and textbooks that meet the needs of our students, a teacher dashboard that provides real-time data and easy-to-access resources for instructional planning, maximizing teacher effectiveness, and ongoing sustainable professional development. Through the negotiation process, CIS was able to significantly reduce the cost of the proposed middle school reading intervention resource. So we had the opportunity to explore upgrading our current high school reading intervention materials to be in full alignment with what our middle school students would be receiving. Upgraded materials and licenses will provide high school reading teachers and students with the following resources, which are not provided in their current edition. Curricular materials, including textbooks and assessments that align with the middle school reading intervention materials. A more personalized instructional experience for students that leverages brain science and growth mindset to accelerate achievement. An updated teacher dashboard and new engaging content. The quality of the reports we receive from this resource enhances instructional leaders' ability to provide more targeted coaching, which will support the fidelity of implementation and ultimately increase student achievement in these courses. As a part of our district's strategic plan, one goal is to ensure a guaranteed and viable curriculum for all students. The purchase of the middle school reading intervention textbook adoption, along with the high school reading intervention upgrade, supports strategic plan guiding principle 2, objectives 2.2 and 2.4. Furthermore, these purchases will save the district money. The initial quote for the middle school reading intervention textbook adoption was $2,159,123. The negotiation cost came down to $1,689,056. The total savings from negotiations to the 17-18 general fund amounts to $409,307. Additionally, the district will experience an annual savings of $385,000 because we will no longer renew the annual subscription for the previous year's supplemental resource. At this time, does anyone have any questions?
Mrs. Gotti.
So I was the one that asked if we could just pull it off. I just had a couple questions from people who watched the, one constituent in particular who was watching the board meeting last time and felt like there maybe was a little more clarification, and I think she had some good questions. So I know in the 8th grade, we talked about if you were on grade level, you would take foreign language, and if you were not, you would be a part of the intervention. What in 6th and 7th grade would you be missing to be a part of the intervention? What class would you no longer be a part of?
Mrs. Christofferson, did you want to address the scheduling questions?
Sure. It varies a little bit by building, depending what they offer during that elective option time. Might be a quarter rotation of a computer applications class, or I can't even think what it would be, or a sci-tech class, or an industrial tech, or something of that nature, where it's a quarter rotation, kind of an exploratory option. We've also, though, created opportunities for students, if they are, based on the reports, are moving towards exactly where we want them to be. There is an exit option for the students then to pick up that course second semester and jump in with some of those exploratory rotations.
So in 6th and 7th and 8th grade, you might have 1 or 2 quarters, or both, where you're missing a quarter class. That would be, but this is far more important to get up to grade level, right?
Correct.
And so that's what you would be missing there.
You wouldn't be missing any of your core instructional courses. It would be an elective option course.
Okay, perfect on that. And then on the, so this would not include, the $385,000 saving was consumables that we use today, correct?
It is currently a software supplemental option that we use through another company that doesn't provide the robustness of this, and so we would move away from providing that anymore.
So we're paying $385,000 a year for that.
For that supplemental piece.
This 1.6 million, or close to 7 million, will last for how long?
7 years.
7 years, and it does not have consumables that we would need to.
It does, but it significantly decreases what that is. I don't know the exact. I'm sorry, I'm going to say the numbers. About 485. It decreases it by about $485,000. $385,000. I'll let you speak to that.
So today we're paying $385,000 for consumables a year. Is that right?
Now it's about $475 or $485, and it reduces it about $385,000.
So we're going to spend $100,000 a year on consumables.
on supplementals.
Or supplemental?
Well,
Or-
like licenses, it's a variety of things.
Okay. So basically, we'll spend $700,000 over the course of the next 7 years on top of the 1.7 million. So we'll spend about 2.4 million. And today, we would be spending 385,000 times 7.
So this whole adoption with the middle school and high school will save us about $470,000. And then on a yearly basis, it will save us about $385,000.
Right, but if we're just comparing what we spend today to what we are going to spend, it's a wash, but we're getting better material.
Because we're getting better materials and we're saving money.
From the
annually.
negotiation.
From negotiations and through what we call our off-formula dollars.
Right. We're spending 1.7 million on the material. We'll spend 100,000 a year. That's 2.7 million. And today, if we were spending the 385 times 7, that would get us close to 2.7.
Yes.
So it's no difference in cost from what we're doing today, but we're getting better materials than what we would otherwise have. And the negotiation you were able to do got us to that place where it's a wash.
Yes. But we're actually saving about $385,000 annually in our off formula that goes to our middle schools and high schools. So we're saving more than a wash.
Do we also spend on materials every year?
All of that would be included in off formula dollars.
Okay. All right. Okay, I think, and then the important thing, I think, which this impacts about 2,000 kids a year, correct? Is that what you said last time, roughly? Curriculum always impacts kids in the classroom. And I think that's the important thing for all of us to remember as we go through conversations going forward. Curriculum is important, and this curriculum is important for getting us to where we need kiddos to be so that they're on grade level at the middle and the high school. So I'm very much in favor of it. I wanted to understand the cost structure, and I also wanted to understand what kids were not taking, what classes they weren't taking.
Good questions.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Perlman?
Just 2 brief questions. The first one, is this program something that's going to be used for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, or just 7th and 8th graders?
6th, 7th, and 8th.
Okay. My other question is, maybe I missed this, what's off formula dollars? I mean, it
That's
was
a
mentioned a
budget
few
question.
times, I thought I'd ask.
So buildings receive in their general fund off formula dollars for different areas to help them pay for certain materials and supplies throughout the year.
Is that the same as building funds or discretionary funds?
It's in their building funds,
Okay,
yes.
within- Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Okay. Well then, ladies and gentlemen of the board, I would like to request your approval of these action items. And again, thank you for this opportunity.
You're doing the high school as well?
Yes. That
Okay, you already
was-
talked about the high school as well?
I did. I can review
Okay.
that information if you'd
Sorry,
like.
you're good. All right.
Okay.
I will now entertain a motion to approve J1A and J1B.
I move approval of J1A Middle School Reading Intervention Textbook Adoption and J1B High School Reading Intervention Materials Upgrade.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Merica and second by Dr. Holman. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Gadding,
Aye.
Holman,
Aye.
Merica,
Aye.
Perlman,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Scanlon,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Cassidy.
Aye.
9-9.
Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item J1C. Dr. McFarland.
Good evening. And we also have with us representation from CIS and also the Teachers Union in case there are any questions. We were fortunate to come before you at our last meeting on April 16th as an informational item for the annual update of the Student Code of Conduct. Since that last meeting, there have been no changes or questions regarding the information presented. The only potential change would be included in any action that the board might take on policy updates that are included later on in tonight's agenda. So in the absence of any questions, we would like to recommend that the board approve the first reading of the Student Code of Conduct for the 2018-19 school year.
Mr. Scanlon?
Was this taken off the consent agenda as well, or is it?
No.
Okay.
It's just the first reading.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Gotti?
Sorry, I was busy talking to Mrs. Kilbine. Is this for questions? Is that where
Yes.
we're at? On any part of it?
Any part of J1C.
Okay, I had a question from a constituent regarding staff members being involved, and I know we talked about it just a little bit last time in a situation, and if the student didn't intentionally intend to harm them. And so the question came from a retiree who was just interested to know, how can you prove, or how did we get to that place where we said it had to be intentional? Because does that mean that it's best not for staff people to get involved, or what are we trying? Is there more that we're saying here?
Sure. So part of it would depend on which part you're referring to. We do have, one of the items in the Code of Conduct is reckless behavior. So if you're talking about a staff member being injured in attempting to break up or prevent a fight, certainly your question related to staff, we had talked about also making sure that our staff, truly it is the responsibility of our school administration and our security to break up a fight. If a teacher is choosing to intervene, it's because of that situation, and we will make sure that our teachers are trained more at appropriate ways to intervene between two students in conflict.
That's what I was, that was part of it, was just that understanding. Does it mean that if someone accidentally hits the teacher when they're in the middle of a fight, or if the student actually bites the teacher, it would be intentional, right? So that's where I think that was where the question was coming from, and it was one in my mind of, are we wanting to train teachers better on how to be involved, or are we more so encouraging the appropriate personnel to get involved in these situations?
That's a very difficult situation depending on what's happening. And obviously, as we talked about in the last time, some of us just respond to the situation. We just want to make sure that our teaching staff, who are typically in our halls, as well as our security and administration, are better trained at how to intervene in a conflict between students.
Thanks.
Mr. Scanlon?
I guess my question kind of goes with, if our Code of Conduct is stating that administrators and security personnel are the ones that are supposed to break up a fight, but I'm going to go ahead and guess that we've got a lot more teachers in the hallway during an altercation or during passing period when one might occur. What liability are we opening ourselves up to as a district if a teacher chooses not to, I should say a teacher capable of breaking it up, or multiple teachers capable of breaking it up, if a student gets seriously injured, waiting on administrators or security to come and address the situation?
That's a great question, but first let me respond to the Code of Conduct does not have anywhere in it that it says that whose responsibility it is to break up a fight. Certainly that's the practices that we put in place in our schools, in our buildings, also working with our Human Resources Department about, for example, the responsibilities of a security person and administrator. But yes, that was the question that was posed last time, which is, as a staff member, my inclination is to break up a fight and not to have a student get injured. I'm not thinking in that moment about myself. At the same time, if I'm a staff member who says, I'm going to do everything in my power to break up this fight, telling students to get security, telling the students to stop, following the protocols that we put in place. But if I don't intervene and a child does get injured, that's also a question. Does somebody then, what is the liability, you ask? I can't answer that. Is the liability greater from the staff member who gets injured or from the parent whose child gets injured because I chose not to? Again, that would be a question that isn't answered by our code of conduct. We'll just do our best to make sure that everybody chooses to get involved in this situation, is best trained to respond.
Can we have legal come up and discuss that? You know, I know we have our code of conduct, and then we also have laws, and I guess it's just is it something that we need to kind of include into our negotiated contract with the teachers? Or I guess I'm just a little confused as to how do we try to minimize the liability and improve the safety of our students.
And I think you're asking an excellent question that is beyond the scope of our code of conduct. So.
What's the liability?
Matt, can you repeat the question, please? Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I was asking if we have, from my understanding of talking, was that our administrators and security personnel are responsible for breaking up any altercations between students. We also have a lot of teachers in the hallways or in the classroom when an altercation might arise. What liability are we opening ourselves up to if we do not have something that that has the teachers required to do what they can to break up the altercation? Is that something we have to negotiate with a contract? I guess because we could, if there's an altercation going on and the teacher doesn't feel comfortable breaking it up or trying to effectively stop it, what damages or could happen to a student while administrators and security are responding to that?
Help me understand why you think teachers are not responsible, and I guess I'm not following.
I guess maybe I misunderstood. I was just told that the responsibility of breaking up altercations fell upon administrators and security personnel.
I would say that it would generally fall, and I'm not an administrator in the building to know, but my understanding is that it would fall upon any staff in that situation, and they would be ultimately responsible for trying to keep those students out of harm's way if an altercation broke out. You know, I don't know, generally speaking, and I'm not really the person to ask, but you know, that would be ultimately our responsibility to make sure that all of our students and all of our staff are providing a safe learning environment, and maybe Mr. Evans might be better to answer that question from an administrator's perspective.
I think that's accurate. Everyone's trying to maintain a safe and secure environment. I think all teachers, all staff are trying to keep that safe and secure environment. They're going to step in if they see two young people yelling at each other or having a conflict and try to stop that. If it gets physical, I think they are going to send for help. They may or may not, depending on who the individual is. Maybe they've recently had knee surgery or something, or back surgery. Maybe they're not capable of the moment of stepping in, but normally speaking, everyone's trying to keep the environment safe and secure. So I'd have to.
Was it not just presented though that
Annie, do you want to share what you're? Because I don't think that's what you were meaning.
I mean,
but I think it's kind of confusing how you.
I'm confused.
Certainly, as we've worked with our staff, and certainly also with our human resources, and why don't you come on up? We've asked the question repeatedly because it is asked on whose responsibility. And it is the responsibility for the safe, secure environment for the administrators and security. And we, again, have our teachers in the hallways for high visibility, certainly to establish those relationships. But I'll let, sorry, Charles.
Good morning, guys. It is still morning. The board meeting is not over.
if you don't mind, can I take a step back? Teachers are definitely responsible for assisting in breaking up a fight. A teacher, we would have a hard time with a teacher who stood by and did nothing. What we don't require teachers to do is get physical, to physically step between two kids, hold them apart, to physically restrain kids unless they're trained. We do require security and administration to do that. So that's the difference. So a teacher needs to say stop, she needs to, or he needs to request help. A teacher is responsible for pushing other kids out of the way, to avoid the fight and to do all those sorts of things. So they're still responsible for that safe environment. But we wouldn't ask a teacher, like Mr. Evans said, that has a bad back, to step between two kids and physically separate them when they're fighting and out of control. We'd ask our administrator of security to do that.
So then I guess what liability do we have as a school district in that response time? That if that teacher does not feel comfortable physically separating those students, you know.
And Megan may be able to better address this than I would, but I would say that's a tough question, and it would depend on each individual situation. The question we would ask with liability is a reasonable person doing everything possible to stop that fight? And if the answer is yes, then we don't have a lot of liability. If the answer is no, if the teacher waited 5 minutes to say stop, if the teacher turned away, if the teacher didn't try to get other kids away, then we would have a lot more liability. So really it's that reasonable person question. And a reasonable person's not if you were in Target and saw two people fighting, you wouldn't reasonably be expected to step between them and push them to stop. But you would be reasonably expected to get store associates or a PD to help. So it's kind of that reasonable person question we'd consider.
And do we have training for teachers for that reasonable person situation?
MANT training, and I am not an expert on MANT, but MANT training talks about de-escalation. It's something we try to provide all teachers. Our special ed teachers, especially staff who work with very physically aggressive kids, think BSP, ACP kids, special needs kids, they are trained in MANT. That does include some restraints at the higher levels of MANT training, and we do expect teachers who are MANT trained to restrain kids in those special need classes that need that.
Thank you.
And that's all for any teacher in the district, correct?
Not every teacher is fully certified in MANT. That is.
I'm talking about the opportunity to get that training.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Perlman?
Just a brief comment. I think those are all excellent questions. I do think the discussion points to the need to have some basic training as to, because I agree, it is a reasonable person. If you have a teacher on crutches, not reasonable to expect them to break up a fist fight. There's 100 scenarios, hypotheticals you could go through. But I do think it's important to know that a physically able adult watching two children fight may have a standard as a reasonable, objective person to do something. And so I think Mr. Scanlon's right that is worthy of discussion. And I do think, it's always been my question, in the code of conduct, because in the criminal context, the intent is the intent to act, not to intend the consequence. And so that's really kind of at the foundation of fights being broken up. I don't think most of the time, I would say that students aren't intending to hurt any teacher trying to break up a fight, but they're intentionally engaging in a fight, and so they should be held responsible. And but I do think a basic understanding of who's responsible and what those minimum responsibilities are very important to protect the student safety, the teachers and staff safety, and the liability as well.
Thank you. Dr. Holman?
Just real quick, do all the teachers know that they have the opportunity to have the MANT training?
I would love to say yes, but I don't believe I could say that. It's something that we need to continue to publish. We have talked about other de-escalation trainings as well and recognize the need to do that district-wide with all teachers. Those are conversations we had over the fall and winter as we try to plan for next year, and we would continue to have. As we continue to have concerns around student behaviors, I think de-escalation is probably one of the most important things we could continue to train teachers on.
I would definitely agree with that.
Mrs. Goding?
So can somebody just explain how the words knowingly and intentionally got in here? Is that because we're trying to steer toward administration security and we're trying to say, hey, I guess to Mr. Wakefield's point, what does a reasonable person do? don't get involved in the middle of an altercation, but get help, tell people to stop, that sort of thing? Are we trying to set up boundaries so different?
Really
so
to look at
everybody knows
intent. I mean, as Mr. Perlman talked about, we model the code that they're the civil code or the criminal code that they use, but we're talking about children, we're talking about in schools, we're not talking about offenders such as that they would have in the criminal court. So we really are looking at, did somebody go in intentionally trying to hurt somebody? And an argument can be made if I'm choosing as a student, if I'm choosing to engage in a physical altercation with another student, somebody's going to get hurt.
Right.
Did I think beyond? Well, we have to look at the developmental capacity of where we are also with the individuals. So.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Well, I just want to tell you, I support the wording for the code on that. Just the students that I've worked with in the past and the teachers, I've yet to meet a teacher that hasn't intervened in a fight or a disruption in the hallway or in the classroom. It's just a natural instinct. But I've also seen where students have been too large for that individual, and just the matter of the movement there, that individual gets hurt. So I appreciate that, and thank you guys so much for that. So with that, I will entertain a motion to approve item J1C. Silence.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Perlman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Ryan. Ms. Ryan, any comments or discussion? Mr. Ray, roll call.
Hallman,
Aye.
America,
Aye.
Perlman,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Scanlon,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Cassidy,
Aye.
Goding.
Aye.
9-9.
Thank you. Moving on to item
Thank you.
J1D.
Like the previous items, this item was brought to you before with just one change, and I want to just highlight a couple things. First, no change was brought up in 2020 organizational plan. Policies 4004 and 4007, just to highlight a recommendation that would be effective August 1st, 2018. 5008, no change. 8230, no change. 8274, one change. On the second to last bullet point, it reads, previously when presented to you, it read, a board member who receives a media inquiry or interviews with a media outlet shall, and that's been changed to should since was provided to you. Also, just want to highlight on policy 4004, there was some questions about some wording in the policy, specifically number 2. That is not a recommended change. That has been a policy since 2014. Number 5 is the actual wording change. So the addition to number 5 is what has been added. Anything else has been on the book since 2014. So again, the only major change, or minor if you would, is 8274, shall to change to should, and just to highlight 4004 and 4007 would be effective 8/1 of 18.
Mrs. Godden.
I had a group of teachers that asked the question on 4004, item 2, that you just mentioned, Mr. Ray, where the wording is, teachers shall make arrangements to be available to students after school. The question posed to me was, what does available to students mean exactly? Does that mean that from 8:25 to 4:35, teachers need to be responsible for tutoring and watching students? So I just need, I'd appreciate just a public clarification of that so that that can get back and answered to the teachers who have put that question out there to me.
That's,
So
Neal
the question is
Sprash.
about number 2 and the wording on number 2 of policy 4004.
So the policy has been in effect, I believe, since 2014. And so the language, it has been as written. The only change to the language affects non-exempt employees, which are not teachers. So the change that was proposed wasn't negotiated with OEA because it didn't affect OEA's bargaining unit.
I think, and I explained that to the staff as well. They want to understand that point too. What does that exactly mean when it says available to students after school? I just need clarification on that.
As I understand it, it means what it says, that teachers are expected to be available for students generally after school, and you know, it is what it is. The rest of the paragraph, I understand, is about something else. So I understand that it to be a little bit different than the first sentence, and we've reached out, OEA has brought that question to us, and we've reached out to OEA if they want to discuss it.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that for the public, or for the record, and publicly for the folks who have asked me about the exactly what the meaning of that is.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. I will now entertain a motion. This is the first reading for item J1D, policy updates. And there'll be a second reading as well.
I move to approve the first reading of policies 2020, 4004, 4007, 5008, 8230, and 8274.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Smerica and second by Dr. Holman. Any discussion?
Just for clarity, as she was reading through those, I was trying to catch up. That was all of them?
Yes.
Okay.
That she went back to the way it's laid out is different.
Thanks.
Roll call, please.
America,
Aye.
Pearlman,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Scanlon,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Snow, Cassidy,
Aye.
Godding,
Aye.
Hallman.
Aye.
9-9.
Thank you. Motion carries. Moving on to item J1E, proposed changes to the 2018 district calendar. Mr. Scott Schmidt-Bonny. Who, by the way, I just want to say thank you for everything you do for OPS. You're almost at every meeting I attend for the district, Mr. Research.
You're going to make me weep on camera. Thank you. Thank you, Matt, for not going there. While the document loads, as a point of order to bring up the process, we came to you in the 16-17 school year to have the calendar approved. The Board of Education approves the calendar after a lengthy process that involves negotiation partners, as well as district administrative staff, teachers, board members certainly, and the public at large. When we have changes, as I come to you tonight, we bring those back to you as well for your consideration as we look to change the calendar for the 18-19 school year. And that is the purpose of my presentation tonight.
Only 3 slides, too. So
I know, I'm trying to be brief. It's a major effort for me.
It's a little odd how it's set up. So you have to move it through here.
Got it. Okay. The basis for this requested change I'm here to propose to you tonight came through our contract negotiations with our friends at the OEA, those contracts having been recently completed and approved by this board. As a function of that, we came to a collaborative agreement between the OEA and the district regarding the number of days within the contract for teachers. This is an important consideration because, as you can imagine, compensation for salaried employees, essentially the dollar amount divided by the number of days it requires to earn it. If you think about being paid as an entry teacher may be paid $41,150. If ask you to do one day for that money, that's a far different thing than 190 or even 189 as we're proposing. And so there is a compensation impact here to the tune of around $217, $218 for new teachers, all the way up to the top end of the salary scale of $352. This is an opportunity for us to give an increase to our hardworking teachers with a much limited fiscal impact in light of our current collective budget constraints, to the extent that it doesn't add more money to the pot, so to speak. It just requires less days to earn it. Now, the one concern would be is the number of days required to teach our students within the district. And to that, we look at comparability and what similar districts to us, as well as our local array, our local community, I would say, is doing as well. And here we find that 189 days is typically what we're seeing, both in a comparable array standpoint as well as within our local Omaha community. And so it is for those reasons that we bring this to you today, and based on that collective agreement. To speak through the process, we had partners in this. Certainly our friends at the OEA provided their feedback and gave their guidance in selecting this option. The Office of the Superintendent and Board of Education, as represented by Mr. Ray. Additionally, we had help from Human Resources and Mr. Wakefield. Curriculum and instruction support, Ms. Comine provided her talents and opinions. Additionally, I represented research. A couple unsung groups that didn't make the slide that I want to mention who are ready to spring into action based on your approval is Shelley Dutiel and Steve Priestman in the Print and Pub Department, who create the official calendar and get it out to everybody. Additionally, I'll be meeting with our friends in District Communications tomorrow morning to plan how we communicate this to all involved stakeholders to make sure the word gets out as best we can. So I did want to mention those pieces and to thank them all for their involvement. I say that in advance of us getting ready to start planning the 1920 and 2021 calendar at the very beginning of the 1819 school year. So we'll be asking for their feedback again. The option that we landed on, I believe, is a great option. It provides the relief that we need, or the change to the calendar that was negotiated, while also meeting some expectations that have been made over the years. And this really affects mostly the winter break, but then a little bit at the end of the year, to the extent that in this calendar cycle, including the 1670 calendar, we added a teacher workday at the end of winter break, which was a really welcome opportunity for teachers to prepare for students to come back for second semester prior to those students arriving in their seats. And so that was maintained, but moved a day earlier to the final Friday in winter break. Students and teachers would then be there in attendance on the 7th. This allowed us to modify the end of the school year such that both students and teachers will have their year end prior to the Memorial Day holiday and be able to start their summer vacations on that high point. And so those were the changes that got us that additional day for teachers and down to 189 total days. With that, I think I gave more words than there are slides. I would welcome any questions.
Mrs. Scanlon?
So would this still, I mean, I guess, question I have, does summer school, is it still that Memorial Day week, that Monday of it? It doesn't start that week, it would start the first week of June, I believe?
It'd be in that time frame. There would really be no change to the summer school calendar. It would, though I would say, it would provide, given a similar start date, a little extra time for those teachers to have holiday prior to starting up if they do teach summer school.
Okay. And then going from 190 days to 189, I know, and I don't know if all board members are familiar with it, there had been a change in recent years going from hours of instruction to days of instruction. How does this, and we're very low on hours of instruction as a district prior to changing to days and extending the actual school day. How does this one day affect us? Does it, I believe we're middle of the pack currently as far as surrounding schools on instructional time. How does that affect us?
Correct. There is a balance that you're speaking to of the number of minutes during a day we teach and then the number of days per year that those minutes are taught. And so it does still largely keep us within that comparative array of our local area, certainly, as well as that larger comparative array of school districts like us. I can tell you the change did result in the reduction of one student day. And that was a difficult decision. It was based on a determination of we have very few PD days, and as we talk about the need for MANTA and additional training for teachers, and having few P days to offer that in is a delicate balance between which do you give up, a student day or a teacher day, or a PD day or a teacher work day for them to prepare for the lessons to come. What I can say to your point is that the extension of the school day did result in a significant amount of instructional unit increases for our students to receive. And so that kind of balances, and I would say we're still well situated based on that extension of the school day to meet the needs of our students.
Mrs. Gutting.
Does this have any impact on graduations? Have they been scheduled, or will all graduations take place prior to May 22nd? Do we know that? I don't know if they've been scheduled yet.
Sure. My understanding is if nothing else, they're in draft form. It shouldn't have any impact on it to the extent that we have sufficient days, given that increase into instructional units, that it one day won't have an impact on them.
Okay. I was just curious about that. I know this particular week of May 20th up until Memorial Day for this year, we have lots of graduations going on.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's important. Is the current 18-19 calendar on the district website?
It is indeed.
So would it be possible, because I know lots of folks who print those off early and start making all of their plans, and even though it doesn't impact fall semester, to send an email to the parents in the district saying, hey, there's been a change to the calendar, here's the link, and go print it off. Just because I think there's a lot of folks who do print that and
Absolutely.
make lots of plans for the following year, and I think it would be good for us to communicate.
Agreed. There's one on my refrigerator. I certainly know what you mean.
Mine's already out too.
Indeed. We'll be meeting with our CRAC district communication team in the morning to use their expertise to make sure that we do get word out to everyone, knowing that this only starts impacting the school year at the winter break time frame. But even saying that, we know that many families plan well in advance for graduation parties, et cetera. So that is something, communication will be key.
And I do understand that it goes in the end of the year packet with especially the elementary and the middle school kids, I think. But for all those parents who don't look at that packet very closely or who don't realize there's a change, I think it's healthy for us to always tell people we've made a change so they know which one is the most current.
Absolutely, and I'd be very happy once I hash out that communication plan with district communication to provide it to the board via Mr. Ray so that you can make sure to keep your constituents aware of what to expect and when.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Well, thank you so much. Again, I appreciate it. I mean, the
Thank you,
board
sir.
appreciates you presenting today.
Thank you.
We'll entertain a motion to approve the J1E, proposed changes to the 2018-19 district calendar.
I move to approve the proposed changes to the 2018-2019 district calendar.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Holman, second by Ms. Ryan. Sorry, Ricky. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Pearlman.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Scanlon.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Snow.
Aye.
Cassidy.
Aye.
Gadding.
Aye.
Holman.
Aye.
America.
Aye.
9-9.
Motion carries. Up next is J2A, legislative update by Lindsay O'Hara and Associates. We have Rochelle and John Lindsay. I believe John is growing a mustache today. For the kids? No?
You didn't mention the beard, too. Guess I have some work to do.
Oh, you're good.
Okay, so you can just move it there. Do you want the clicker? What's that? Oh, just click it there.
the legislative session thankfully came to an end. As Will Rogers said, the state is safe, the legislature has adjourned. We're going to go through what happened, and we've kind of combined things more into concepts, because certainly at the end of a session, at the end of a legislative session, concepts are flying all over and grabbed from different bills and combined into a bill. So what we want to do is update you on the various concepts that were out there, because that will give us some indication of the types of things that we can see in the future. The first area we have is in the area of finance, specifically with respect to TIOSA. And I should step back and just talk about a general observation of what occurred towards the end of the session. And that is that, that there were kind of three competing interests. Property tax relief, there was a group that wanted property tax relief, primarily a group that came from those who have ag land in their districts because of the increasing ag land valuation. Second, there was a group that was interested, and these would be more urban folks, that were interested in income tax relief. By the way, either of those would have resulted in a reduction in the general fund. There was a third group that was interested in increasing the funding of education, either because they were proponents of education or because increasing the funding in education could give a consequent property tax reduction. Those three interests, by the end of the session, competing against each other, resulted in none of them having enough votes to pass the legislature. And thus, in those three areas, nothing occurred. Some of the proposals that were included with respect to TIOSA were, one was LB 640, reducing the property tax maximum levy from $1.05 to $1, and then adjusting TIOSA actually to 98.7 cents by the time it was finished, because there were various amendments that came through, and then adjusting TIOSA to make up some portion of that difference. There were proposals to increase sales tax and cigarette taxes and others to increase funding for education, again, to reduce property taxes. Proposals to provide foundation aid, which would provide X number of dollars per student, regardless of what other resources your district had, or what obstacles your students would face. There were proposals to change within TIOSA. There was actually one proposal to have a local option income tax, but all of these were trying to figure out how to fund education better or more efficiently. There were two proposals, and I think that's important to understand. There was a bill plus a portion of another bill that asked to study pretty intensively the TIOSA formula. The TIOSA was adopted in 1990. It's been 28 years since a major study overhaul has taken place. That doesn't mean TIOSA hasn't changed. I think it's been changed 25 times in the last 28 years. So a lot of it is, it's lost its goal to figure out what does it cost to educate a student, and then figure out how to fund that. As Rochelle's going to mention during the interim studies, that is, I think, a topic that's going to increase over time. There was also, as I mentioned, a push for property tax reduction, various proposals that would do anything from eliminating the learning community to eliminating the $1.05 lid on property taxes to the big one, providing an income tax credit equal to 50% of property taxes paid. Again, none of those, we couldn't get a majority to coalesce around those, so none of them passed. One of them, hanging over the legislature most of the session, was a proposed ballot initiative that you've probably all read about, that would have done what I just described, provide an income tax credit equal to 50% of property taxes. Shortly after the session, it was announced that that petition drive was being discontinued and that alternative avenues were being looked at. The thing that I think we can assure you is that the property tax debate is not finished. It will be back next year, and again, something that we have to be certain next year that that any changes do not negatively impact OPS. Finally, in the area of finance, ag land values, as I mentioned, are what have been driving the property tax debate. Property taxes have increased, or excuse me, ag land values have increased dramatically in the last decade, 12 years. Consequently, property taxes have increased. There have been proposals to use an income-based approach to valuing ag land. There was a proposal to take kind of I think it was the California model that would say when you buy your property, that's the value until you sell the property, which has the effect of eroding dramatically the property tax base, as well as causing huge sticker shock when somebody buys a new home. So like I say, not very little happened in the area of finance, but there was an awful lot of discussion.
Next up is areas in curriculum in the classroom. During the 2017 session, there were bills introduced regarding dyslexia and reading in the classroom. Neither of those bills advanced in 2017. However, the two issues really converged when Senators Linehan and Pansing Brooks made a decision to tour the state, visit quite a few classrooms across the state, and talk to quite a few administrators. Mr. Evans hosted the two senators actually at OPS schools for a full day. They visited several schools and got actually quite a bit of media attention. And the two of them continued to work together in this session to pass two different bills on these issues. The first was LB 651, introduced by Senator Linehan. That bill changed significantly when it was amended into LB 1081, which was the Education Omnibus Bill. And that was the bill regarding reading. There were a couple of different amendments, but really what it requires is the district to have a reading intervention program approved by the state. It narrowed the bill from applying to K-6 to K-3. And they tried to eliminate as many of the mandates in that reading bill as possible in order to eliminate the fiscal note. There are some components that apply to what is offered at the summer school level, and I think we're still trying to figure out the full effect of that bill, which doesn't take effect until July 2019. So we've got some time to figure that out. The second bill was regarding dyslexia, was LB 1052, introduced by Senator Pansing Brooks. She took quite a bit of what she learned over the interim and put it into this bill that requires the Department of Education to produce a guidance document regarding identifying and then addressing dyslexia in the classroom. It also requires that in state college programs and at the university, in those college programs, that those teachers are learning more about dyslexia in their education. So those were those bigger issues in reading and dyslexia. Second was virtual schools. Senator Justin Wayne introduced a virtual schools bill for us in 2017. We worked hard to get that bill out of committee and onto general file last year. Unfortunately, this year, just because of the time crunch, we ran out of time on virtual schools. However, we, in conversations with Senator Groney and Senator Wayne, are already having discussions about including virtual schools in the omnibus bill for the next session. There was really no opposition to the bill, it just ran out of time. So we're continuing to work on that into the next session. Finally, here is teacher certification. Senator Tony Vargas introduced LB 1135 as a method to help the teacher shortage and substitute teacher shortage across the state. It provides an alternative method for certifying teachers. The bill did not advance this year. However, we foresee that this bill will continue to be discussed in the next year, as Senator Vargas did introduce LR 452, and that has been given the second priority by the Education Committee. So it's likely that bill will be heard over the interim, or that study, excuse me. Gotta use this one here. Oh. Next up are charter schools and voucher programs. There's bills year over year on charter schools and voucher programs in a variety of different forms. However, this year we did see the Opportunity Scholarship Act, which is LB 295, did advance to general file and did receive a priority, so it was debated on the floor of the legislature. It's been, I don't know the last time that a bill like this has been debated on the floor of the legislature. However, there was strong opposition by the education community to this bill. It was a pretty heated filibuster, and the bill failed to get enough votes to advance and effectively was killed for the year. You can see there were several other bills introduced. All of those were held in committee. However, we foresee that this will be an issue back up again next year.
Retirement, from an OPS perspective, the retirement focused around OSERS, focused around LB 548. LB 548, as you are aware, came up for debate, came up 3 votes short. There were a couple of votes that were excused that we think would have been yes votes. But it did face some significant opposition, and that is, of course, the bill that would have allowed bonding. The bill did not, since the bill did not pass, the legislative committee has started looking at brainstorming alternatives to how to address the unfunded liability. And at some point, presumably this fall, the legislative committee would be coming back to you with some suggestions. So that work will be ongoing, and we'll continue to work towards finding options that can help address that issue. LB 1005, LB 1005 was originally introduced as a bill dealing with county employees and the School Retirement Act, which is different from the OSERS Act that deals with all the other school districts in the state. And it would have adopted some technical language to update retirement statutes. The bill came up onto our radar screen late in the session when an amendment was adopted that also applied those same technical types of corrections to OSERS, as well as the judge's retirement and some of the other state plans. But what it did include was the requirement that the statute was used to say the ARC for OSERS would be calculated using a 30-year layered approach, which is the same approach that the state uses. This change says that the ARC would be calculated, or the unfunded liability would be calculated using the OSERS funding policy. The OSERS trustees, I think it was in 2013, adopted a funding policy that says that they would use a closed end, right now 27-year amortization period. The net effect of that will be to increase that ARC, to increase that unfunded liability. Theoretically, it would be to arrive to 100% funding in a shorter period of time. But that, that bill did pass, the amendment adopted shortly before 548 was advanced from committee. In 2017, there was, this is more just a heads up and looking to the future. In 2017, there was a bill introduced to change defined benefit plans to some political subdivision defined benefit plans to cash balance plans. That bill did not make it out of committee last year and did not make it out this year. But we do expect that to come forward again next year, and probably in a broader setting. During the debate on LB 548, if any of you watched it, you heard repeated times that there are other options like converting to a cash balance. So it's an issue we'll be watching to if introduced, to bring back to you in January. There is, as Rochelle will be going through the the interim studies, and those studies, there is a interim study resolution to study what impact those would have.
Just as some background, for those of you who maybe aren't aware, an interim study is an opportunity for a senator to introduce what's called a legislative resolution, and it provides them an opportunity and potentially some resources to take a deeper dive on an issue before they decide whether or not to introduce any legislation on an issue. Keep in mind that a legislative resolution won't necessarily have a hearing, and it won't necessarily ever turn into a bill. It's a study at the beginning. So as is with every year, there are many studies that would affect Omaha Public Schools. First here, there's some curriculum studies here. And I should also say that each committee gets to prioritize studies, and it's usually the top 3 that receive hearings. However, in recent years, that's not always the case. They sometimes will throw in a hearing on another bill, if they please. So LR 381 regarding financial literacy was the 4th choice by the Education Committee for a priority. So we imagine that one will likely get some version of a hearing. But really, most importantly here is retirement. It sounds like retirement will continue to be a large issue for the district as we move into the next year. And the primary study prioritized by the Retirement Committee is LR 368 there, just looking at all the retirement systems. But LR 396 goes back to what John was just talking about regarding defined benefit, switching over to a cash balance plan. Only this one, we want you to specifically take notice, applies to schools and teacher retirement in the Class 5 retirement system. And if you look at the study resolution language, it specifically says to analyze what is most effective for taxpayers and what will best result in solvency, defined benefit, defined contribution, or a cash balance, and to really dive into those questions. So this is one, we need to watch over the interim.
I'm sorry, is that 368 or 396?
396.
Okay.
School safety was a large issue this year, and also in interim studies. The only one that the Education Committee did prioritize as their 5th priority, the last one there, LR 456. So we imagine this one might be most likely to have a hearing. It's regarding the Student Discipline Act. However, I would like to point out that LR 429 regarding school resource officers, we believe that the district will likely get contacted for more information on SROs. The introducer of the study sits on a national board looking at student discipline and SROs and has been in contact with us in the past on this issue. So we imagine that we'll be contacted again. Next up is just broad education administration studies, and the first one there is the first priority of the Education Committee, as it always is. It's just everything under the sun regarding education, and the chair has the ability to make the topic as he pleases as he approaches the hearing dates. You'll also notice there LR 452 at the bottom. That is the second priority of the Education Committee regarding alternative teacher certification. So it's likely that one will have a hearing as well. And then I made a mistake and left off a slide. So there are several finance studies, and we'll get those out to you. But as John talked about, lowering property taxes, lowering the income taxes, and adjusting state aid is going to continue to be an issue into this next year. Many, many studies issued on how to use TIOSA to potentially achieve those tax cuts that many senators are looking for. So that'll continue to be a hot issue into next year.
We of course we've watched those hearings when they're scheduled for, watch those studies when they're scheduled for a hearing, which typically late August into November, although elections tend to put a downward pressure on the need for hearings. But we of course will bring those to the Legislative Committee, and we'll receive direction as far as what to do. And with that, be happy to answer any questions you might have about anything that went on this session.
Mr. Scanlon?
Got a couple. I guess I had not heard of the, I know ag ag land valuation has always been a very touchy subject between urban and rural school districts and just people. What, you had mentioned income-based ag land value and purchase price ag land value.
Yes.
Is there one valuation that kind of has more support down in Lincoln? Or is it also split?
The income-based solution has been proposed at various times in the past. In this particular bill had a specific method of calculating of capitalizing the earnings and coming up with a resulting valuation. Frankly, I don't think that reduced the values to the extent that was hoped when they started running some models. So I don't think that really gathered steam. The other one was a constitutional amendment that would have put on the ballot a proposal to freeze the values at the purchase price. And that really didn't get traction at all. There was very little discussion of it. I think the track record for that type of legislation is not good, and I think they've, as far as the result on in other states that have tried it. So really neither one of those got a real strong foothold for different reasons.
So we're probably no closer with either one of those approaches?
I don't think so.
Okay. The charter school legislation, what's the, I guess, what is the support at the I guess where are legislators or senators leaning? I know you said there was a filibuster. I guess, is this a unified type across the state that they're not wanting charter schools, or is this also a urban-rural type difference of opinions?
I would say the opposition was statewide and varied across state. It also seemed to vary across party. But I would say it was statewide. It wasn't necessarily a rural versus urban.
And also, could you provide to us what OPS senators supported the charter schools and which opposed the charter schools, so we can know as a board, you know, for when we go to determine if we support charter schools or not, which senators are showing their support for them and which ones are outwardly opposing them.
And I should say
You can email
that
that to us
yeah,
later, too.
absolutely. And the Opportunity Scholarships Act wasn't necessarily it was a tax credit for private schools, for private school scholarships. So that was the bill that made it to the floor. But I can definitely get you whatever vote we have on those.
Well, and I guess, in my opinion, a private school tax credit, I guess I'd view that as a charter school type support, not, I guess, not fully supporting public schools and diverting tax dollars away from public schools for other educational purposes.
We'll get you those votes.
Okay, thank you. And then another one that's near and dear to my heart, OSER's support down at the legislature. To be blunt, why do they still have it? Because they have, in my opinion, the OSER's Board of Trustees has been very incompetent in their investment decisions and continue to show incompetency in the fact that they don't reduce their budget and they continue to spend way too much on travel. What are we missing as an administration, as a school board, to show the legislature just how irresponsible the OSER's Board of Trustees are?
Thanks for the softball.
Yeah, that's right. Did I need to clarify anything?
I'll just dance. No, the issue with OSERS, I mean, there's a variety of issues with OSERS overall. There's questions about why is OPS the only school district in the state that has the expense of operating its retirement system? Consequently, we are the only school district in the state that has to pay an ARC. The state retirement system, the law was changed in about 02 or 03 to say hey, school districts, if we have an ARC, we'll pick it up. The state will pick it up. But they haven't done that for OSERs, which is why OPS is confronting the issue you're having, is that the state doesn't do the same thing with ARCs as it requires of OPS. With regards to the OSERS trustees, that's their performance, I think, is something that has to be judged by people who look at the facts and come up with it. As far as from a political perspective, we were trying to address the unfunded liability, and in doing that, you basically can't get various pockets of opposition. Each pocket of opposition you pick up hurts your possibilities of getting the bill passed. So to try to do anything with the trustees as far as their existence would have made it even more difficult to accumulate the votes necessary to try to get 548 advanced. So it basically, it's a political reason.
Knowing that, the board has had this battle with the OSERS Board of Trustees, and we finally got away from them making investment decisions. And I think in order for that, they were removed under the umbrella of kind of OPS Board of Education guidance. Is there anything in this upcoming session in 2019 that we can do to kind of correct that to where, I guess it's kind of, in my opinion, it's like giving your kid an allowance and letting them decide how much they get to spend and how much they get. And it just, there's no oversight on that. Is there anything legislatively that we should be pursuing to kind of rein in that, I guess, unrestricted spending and what I guess unrestricted budget?
Certainly, there are things that can be done legislatively. OSERS is a creature of statute, and everything that's involved with OSERS is directed by state statute. So if there are things that this board wants to seek to be changed, such as what you're describing, simply need to direct us to go seek that change, and that would be the direction we would take. And I think the proper time for that discussion is when the legislative committee returns with options that if this board believes that should be one of the options considered, then that's what will happen.
Thank you.
Mr. Perlman?
I'll just back it up a little bit and ask a question that's on the minds of some of my constituents, and that is the dyslexia legislation. When does that go into effect?
I don't think it had the emergency clause. I'd have to look, but probably coming up here in July is my guess.
Okay. All right, so that puts some requirements on the district as far as recognition and intervention for dyslexia.
With the dyslexia bill, it just requires that the State Department of Education provide a guidance document down to the districts. So that's really the thrust of that bill.
Okay. And I do have a few questions about the retirement. So is it accurate to say that LB 548 would have changed the dynamic of the pension from a from a defined benefit to a defined contribution or a cash balance, or just an initial merge of the two, or neither?
No, it would have been neither.
Neither.
It would have remained a defined benefit plan.
No, when I meant merger of NPERS and OSERS. Is that?
NPERS is a defined benefit plan as well. OSERS is a defined benefit plan. So if the two, as 548 had originally been proposed in 2017, Had that been accomplished, it would have resulted in one defined benefit plan rather than being converted to a cash balance plan. The defined benefit plan, of course, is the benefits are established by contract with the collective bargaining unit or by statute. It's converted into the statute, and the benefits are what's described. On the defined contribution plans, the contribution is what is defined. X percent of salary will be matched with X percent of salary by the district, and that goes into a fund. As it increases, then whatever that value has is what it will be in the future. Cash balance is a hybrid between the two. It has, it basically has a kind of a 401k with some guarantees of returns.
Right, that really wasn't my question, because I am an MPERS employee, so I knew, and it's not defined benefit any longer. It used to be, but there may be some under MPERS that are, but I guess I'm in the county. I'm on a county plan, so it's probably MPERS. Is MPERS an umbrella for several different? Right. Okay. So there's, but let me just ask just a simple question. What did 548 seek to do? LB 548.
When it was introduced, or
correct?
When it was introduced, it sought to combine OSERS into NPERS. And that was the thrust of it.
Okay. And I guess ultimately, my big picture question is it simply up to the legislature to decide whether or not OSERS or the funds in Omaha Public Schools retirement, now held majority by the Nebraska Investment Council, is it up to the legislature to decide whether or not that gets converted to something other than a defined benefit retirement system?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And will there be a bill next year, do you think, to accomplish that?
There could be. There's a study. The issue has been talked about. I guess my best answer would be it would not surprise me if there was a bill introduced to do that.
Okay. And I think my last question is, Mr. Scanlon said that the spending of OSERS is unrestricted, I think was the word he used. Can you just, for the education of the board, myself included, who funds OSERS and what limits are there? Who controls whether or not they exist and how they're funded, how many people they hire, and so forth?
State statute lays out a procedure for selecting OSERS trustees. Used to be appointed by the OPS board. Under the bill that was passed that transferred the investment authority, it provided a method of electing members to the Board of Trustees. The authority of the Board of Trustees is laid out in general terms in statute as well. How that is exercised, for example, how much staff to employ, what outside consultants or professionals to employ, those decisions are within the purview of the OSERS trustees, and they have the right under statute to make those determinations. They do not make investment decisions. Those are done by the state investment officer. They do have the right to, for example, set a funding policy, set what the amortization period is, which does have an impact on what the board has to deal with, because the smaller you make that amortization period, the larger you make that ARC. And the ARC is what OPS is obligated to pay on an annual basis. So there is some control by the OSERS trustees effectively over the OPS budget.
Mr. Evans, could you elaborate a little bit more on that since you're a trustee?
Yeah, see if I can help on that. Kinda. Right. The budget for the OSERS office is set by the trustees, which was, I think, Mr. Perlman's question. For example, they just did put the budget together for next year, and there were 2 trustees that voted to decrease some spending, specifically on travel issues, but it was outvoted by the trustee majority. So, but they get to set the budget. So if they add staff like a lobbyist or legal or whatever it is, they make that decision, and it comes from the OSER's account, which is essentially all the dollars that come from 8,000 employees like Mr. Ray and everyone else in this room that works for the organization. So that is how it's set. They set it annually. In fact, it was just the last board meeting that they set it, but I don't know of any other controls on that budget, which I think was part of Mr. Scanlon's question earlier. I don't think there are any other than the trustees vote on all of those expenses, and they're not always unanimous votes, but whatever is voted on by the board majority and that, or the trustee majority, that's the budget.
Mrs. Gotti?
I just want to reflect on a couple things that Mr. Perlman said. Just thinking about 548, how it was originally introduced, but where it ended up in 2018. So in 2017, for the public's information, we were trying to get the merger of the two systems. And NPERS that relates to teachers is a defined benefit and not a cash balance system. So what we were trying to do was, and what we have been trying to do for a number of years, is to align the two systems so they could come to a merger place. If they were a different, two different types of retirement systems, it would probably be very difficult to ever get to a place of merger, right? I think 548 ended up being the pension obligation bonds, which was entirely different than how it came out of 17 and into 18. It was a complete change. So that's just a little bit of information on that. I would say, kind of reflecting on Mr. Evans' comments about OSERs and maybe using the word unrestrained versus unrestricted. I would use the word unrestrained. There is no oversight by any voting body to hold anyone accountable who's on the Board of Trustees. Certainly that was removed from the Board of Education. No voter is out there helping that. So I would call it unrestrained and no oversight. Those funds come from the retirees, from current employees, and from the taxpayer. So that is a little bit related to that. So everybody at this table is contributing toward the budget for OSERs in some fashion or another. So I guess that would be my comments and thoughts on that. I have a question related to property taxes, specifically thinking about the rural communities. Is there ever conversation related to the lag that exists between sales and then changes to valuation? Because I think what I've witnessed in rural ag property is just that lag time from when sales were so high and commodities were so high a few years back that the lag hasn't caught up. The prices are still higher. Does anyone in the legislature ever have that conversation about working with county assessor's offices to move that sales data to be more current? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, that discussion comes up because it lagged when the values were going up. It lagged on the way in, and it's lagged on the way up, and it lags on the way down. But yeah, there's a lot of discussion about county assessors, how they approach their jobs, and disagreements with how the land is assessed. But I mean, there's just about every solution imaginable gets talked about because it's a significant issue to farmers and ranchers.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the hard work you did. I know you guys worked those votes really hard and we just came up short, but thank you.
Mr. Perlman?
Just one final question on OSERs. It's a 10-member board, is that right?
I'm trying to remember.
Miss-
And I'm looking at Mr. Evans as a trustee.
Okay.
I believe it's 8.
8. And then my other question is it's a vote, right? And then who votes on who is a trustee? I'm just trying to flesh out Ms. Gadding's question about who selects the OSER's trustees.
State statute sets up which categories represented. For example, certified employees, teachers, administrators have a person they vote on. In fact, there's an election right now for a certified representative on the trustees. Classified employees, non-certified, also have a representative, and they serve, I believe, 4-year terms. Then you also have a retired OPS, former OPS employee that serves by statute. You have 2 community members who serve by statute, and they're voted on by the OSER's trustees. It used to be the school board, but now it's the OSER's trustees. They serve 4-year terms, I believe, also.
I think the Board of Education does end up, at some point, am I correct on that, when the legislation, we end up voting on that, but those terms, I don't know when that particular role is up to be voted on, if that's right. I don't-
Which
do you
one,
guys
the
remember?
community member or?
The
you're talking
2
about-
community members.
The 2 community,
I
not
think
the certified, 'cause I
ultimately
know the
they come to the
certified
Board
is
of
being
Education. We
voted
just,
on.
right, we just haven't, I don't know where they fall in this new legislation as far as when they come up. I think, I'd like to have, is Megan not here? Oh, there she is. I just can't remember what state statute says, and for some reason I feel like that, but I want to verify.
I don't recall when they come up, and I will find it for you here. But they are, the 2 community members, I believe, are still approved by the Board of Education. But the classified, certified, those are approved by the groups in which they're running by. So they're approved through that process, is my recollection of the statute.
Right, and I think even the terms and the dates when they come
They
up are as
are.
part of
They
state
are.
statute, so.
They are.
That's what I was trying, I just don't remember when those dates are.
I will look it up right now.
Thank you. Miss Maricopa.
You were doing so good tonight, too. First off, I just want to thank our members of our legislative committee that have put in a lot of hours on phone calls and in meetings, Mr. Perlman and Ms. Ryan, and especially Mrs. Godding and Mr. Snow, because I know you guys were down in Lincoln quite frequently and talking to senators and working with them on the OSER's bill. And then I want to especially thank you two, John and Rochelle, and Blair, and everyone else in your office, because I know we don't see all the work that you all put in, fighting for OPS and for our students every day. So just let you know, it is appreciated, and we do appreciate all the hard work that you've done and that we will be doing going forward as we prepare for next year too.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. And again, over the summer and into the fall, the legislative committee will be working on solutions of potential legislation for the legislature in January. Thank you. Up next is J2B, alternate curriculum program textbook adoption. Mrs. Melissa Comine.
Good evening. Well, on behalf of approximately 650 students and all of the ACP teachers, it is an honor to present to you as an informational item the alternate curriculum program textbook adoption, most commonly referred to as ACP in our district. With me tonight is Kara Saldierna, who is the Director of Special Education, Abby Schmidt, who is Secondary ACP Supervisor, and also Robin Quinn, who is an Elementary ACP Supervisor. And Abby will be doing the presentation tonight.
Hello, thank you for having me. In the summer of 2017, teachers from Special Education Alternate Curriculum Program, which is ACP, reviewed materials from several publishers and voted on a field test selection. The ACP Special Education Classroom covers all subject areas, so a variety of materials were reviewed for all core subject areas, including life skills and social skills. Students in ACP have significant cognitive disabilities and require additional support to meet their individual needs. For the first round of field testing, the Curriculum Review Committee voted to field test each core area through multiple publishers. The second field test was one publisher covering all subject areas. On February 20th, 2018, teachers voted to recommend the adoption of iRead for intermediate elementary classrooms, Let's Play Learn for primary elementary classrooms, along with Handwriting Without Tears and Touch Math for all elementary classrooms. Unique Learning Systems was selected for both middle school and high school. All selected material can be differentiated to meet the needs of a variety of abilities, and all material provides formal and informal assessments, as well as data tracking components. This will guide student IEP progress as well as student achievement. The Department of Curriculum and Instruction Support is requesting approval at the May 21st Board of Education meeting to purchase these instructional materials.
Real quick, is News to You as well included in that?
Yes, well, News to You is, yes, part of the N2Y curriculum.
Thank you.
Yes. Omaha Public School teachers and students in ACP will be provided a guaranteed and viable curriculum that ensures all students receive the same content in a course or grade regardless of which school they attend or who they have for a teacher. Curricular materials and textbooks to meet the needs of our students, and ongoing sustainable professional development. To give you a little bit of background about the alternate curriculum program, historically, the special education alternate curriculum program has not been part of the curriculum adoption cycle. Teachers plan and deliver instruction in multiple subject areas and differentiate to a variety of ability levels, so it's important for them to have consistent and sustainable materials. Students in ACP make up approximately 1% of the student population in Omaha Public Schools. Students who participate in ACP have significant cognitive disabilities and require additional supports to meet their individual needs. We serve, like Ms. Comine said, 650 students K through 21, including those in the Integrated Learning Program, ILP. We currently have 32 elementary classrooms, 14 middle, and 16 high school classrooms. Students participate in statewide alternate assessments that reflect the Nebraska state standards using the extended indicators in ELA, math, and science. The alternate assessment scores are included in the district's achievement data. Currently, classrooms are using a variety of supplementary material to meet the student needs for academics and adaptive skills. Teachers follow students' IEPs and teach all subject areas. With inclusion always being the goal for ACP, core academic and life skills are taught in the ACP classrooms. Authority of action. The authority of action for this purpose is its direct connection to the strategic plan. More specifically, these materials support Guiding Principle 2, high expectations, a rigorous curriculum, and effective instruction. Objective 2.2, which states provide rigorous, guaranteed, differentiated, and viable curriculum to all students, including the following strategies. Strategy 2.2.1, meaningful, engaging content. 2.2.2, standards-based best practices. 2.2.3, professional development on differentiation. 2.2.6, tech enhancements. Also, Objective 2.4, provide culturally appropriate targeted interventions and resources to ensure their academic and behavioral success. Stakeholder groups. Elementary and secondary ACP teachers were involved in the review and selection of resources. Field testing of curriculum items was conducted during the 2017-2018 school year. Teachers will continue to be involved with curriculum development. Research and IMS were involved in the review of resources and the selection of field test sites. Representatives of Curriculum and Instruction Support, the Special Education Division, as well as parents were involved in the review and selection of materials. The fiscal impact. This has been allocated as part of the 2017-2018 budget. The purchase is currently under negotiations and will not exceed these amounts. Again, this has been allocated for this current 17-18 budget. Next steps, pending the board approval of action, District Operational Services will work with the publishers to arrange the purchase and distribution of materials. The recommendation will be to request a request for action at the May 21st, 2018 agenda. Over the summer, special education supervisors and ACP teachers will develop curriculum guides to ensure consistent instruction throughout the Omaha Public Schools. Curriculum and instruction support will work with representatives from all publishers that were selected to provide a training for teachers at the August and the September curriculum days. All adopted curriculum will be implemented in the fall of 2018. Thank you for your time. As former ACP teachers, we're really excited for this opportunity, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Real quick,
Yeah.
when was the last adoption? For
I
ACP?
love that you asked that question. It's been over 11 years.
Thank you. Mrs. Gotti?
So since it's been 11 years ago, are we spending any money today to try to keep that updated, or?
We've been purchasing the supplementary materials that we have that are in our textbook adoption, or textbook order annually.
How much is that roughly? Do you guys know? I'm
gonna
sorry.
refer to Kara.
I think we have about $45,000 budgeted annually for ACP textbook for the replacement for supplementaries, and then teachers have $200 or $300 off formula that they can spend for a few things.
So the proposed cost, does that include everything, or would there also be supplemental going forward?
No, this would be for the whole 7 years moving forward.
Okay, so I'm going to ask, just going forward, because I think this is, that's significant, because that really helps clarify cost. And since we're dealing so much with costs, I think it's good to know that for the next 7 years, we would be spending $40,000 to $50,000 a year just to keep stuff that isn't necessarily very current, and yet this takes care of all costs. So maybe on textbook adoptions going forward, if we can just see more of a financial impact piece. And I want to reflect back on Mrs. Comine did come over, and she and I talked. I was using the $300,000 number as the number that we were spending going forward on the previous textbook adoption. It was actually $475,000. So there is really a savings in the previous one, which is helpful to know. And I think in this case, not necessarily savings, but you're getting much better material, and you've bought it up front, so you're not having to continue. And I think those are really important things, because this impacts kids. It's in the classroom, and actually the savings covers the cost of this material over that 7-year period of time. I know it's stretched out, but, so very good. Thank you.
Mrs. Gotti, would you like them to add that to their items of attachments for the May 21st meeting?
I think that's great. I just think it'd be good to see what we're currently spending versus what we're proposing going forward on these textbook
Comparison
adoptions,
sheet.
because I think it helps us to understand what are we already paying for and what aren't we, what's that difference? And it helps us to clarify and justify that it's okay to spend the money sometimes. Not that it's not, because it does impact the classroom. I think from that standpoint and from the fiscal standpoint, we can understand it better.
Sounds good. Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Merica?
I just have one quick comment because I won't be here at the meeting on the 21st. And that's I'm so excited to see that we are doing something for our ACP classrooms, knowing that it's been 11 years since we updated their curriculums, because if we want to truly live up to our vision and mission that we established as a board, we said we are going to serve every student in our district. And I remember like going back to our first strategic planning meeting, we started with a mission statement that said we prepared students to excel in college and career. And there was a mom that came up to me and said, my kid doesn't fit into that. I don't know if they're going to have a job when they're done with school. I know they can't go to college, but I know they're learning life skills. And we pushed to add life into there as well. And we mentioned we're also teaching life skills and social skills. And so I think it's really important that we acknowledge doing these types of things is really living up to that mission we set of we're helping all of our students in all three of those areas.
Thank you.
Well said. Well, thank you ladies so much for staying with us till 8:40 tonight.
No problem.
It was worth it. Thank you.
Thank you for all the work you do for our students. There is no receipt of reports.
I move that the Board of Education go into closed session for the protection of the public interest and for the prevention of needless injury to the reputations of individuals to discuss with the superintendent, secretary to the board, and legal counsel, negotiations, legal advice, and pending litigation.
We have a motion by Ms. Merica. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Ryan. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ryan?
Aye.
Scanlon? Smith?
Aye.
Snow?
Aye.
Cassidy?
Aye.
Gadding?
Aye.
Holman?
Aye.
America?
Aye.
Perlman?
Aye.
8 aye.
Let the record reflect that the board, let me remind the board that the purpose for closed session is for the protection of the public interest and for the prevention of needless injury to the reputation of individuals, to discuss with the superintendent, secretary to the board, legal counsel, negotiations, legal advice, and pending litigation. Let the record reflect the board went into closed session at 8:42.